"If there's no meaning in it," said the king, "that saves the world of trouble, as we needn't try to find any. And yet I don't know," he went on, spreading out the verses in his knee and looking at them with one eye. "I seem to see some meaning in them after all." This sentence comes from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, where, although taken out of context like this, seems very deep and profound, it is used in a nonsensical way in the story, which is a common way things happen in the novel. When discussing Alice in Wonderland, some like to go deep into possible hidden meanings, like the book actually being about drugs, or every single "we're all mad here" discussion in modern day interpretations of the story. And some believe the book should be taken at face value, as a peculiar story for children. The original story was created by the author for a girl named Alice, shocking I know, while on a boat trip, and later published as a novel. Now, at that time, it was customary for children's stories to be used as a means to educate, not entertain. So when this book got out, it was a novelty, as Lewis Carroll intended it to be just an entertaining novel for his child friends. I would like to mention at this point, I will not get into the controversies about the author. However, if you would like to look more into this, I suggest you research it for yourself and see how you feel about the allegations. Moving on, the story was not just influential at the time. It is still being widely used in storytelling, whether in movie adaptations, shows, or games, and I can see why. Whether you like to look at it as a funky kid's story with no real purpose or an allegory to our current lives, the story transcends its time in the unique way it showcases Wonderland and its characters. It is an escape from reality which helps us, ironically, understand it better, and possibly reconnect us to our child selves. In this video, I would like to share my interpretation of the story and what I was able to gather from it. So let us jump into the rabbit hole and look through the three main themes of the book and see how they connect to this curiouser and curiouser world we crafted for ourselves. The story begins with our main character, Alice, seeing a white rabbit and following him until she reaches Wonderland, a place where things are seemingly out of place and no one behaves in a way Alice can understand. From the first chapter, we can get to know who exactly Alice is. A child who just does things. She doesn't overthink, doesn't worry about what will happen afterward, just, goes with the flow. After all, why would she worry? She is a child, interested, curious child. And she does it over and over again throughout the book. It is not surprising to see a child behave this way. Just try to remember how we were once. You don't second guess climbing an alarmingly flimsy tree. You, not to quote Nike, just do it. And maybe later face the consequences, similar to Alice, where we ask ourselves, was this really necessary? But as adults, we don't even reach this point because we stop ourselves before doing something foolish, which is understandable and desired. We learn from our own and other people's mistakes, especially as a child, and as my grandma likes to say, what you learn in childhood never goes away. But when did this turn into stopping us from taking any sort of action at the slightest notion of unfamiliarity? For example, why do we stop ourselves from trying out a new hobby? Why do we tell ourselves it is for the best, since we will ultimately fail at it? Where did the "let me just try it" mindset go? Unfortunately, for a lot of us, it leaves us once our childhood ends. This is what growing up feels like for most of us, which is a theme that follows us in the book. We are not children forever, and of course many things will change as we grow. The book teaches us that, at some point, we will have to leave Wonderland, but we can bring curiosity from there anywhere in our adult lives, enriching them with creativity and imagination, something that is specific to us humans alone. To get back to the plot, we see Alice is not just going around with her brain turned off. She does think and consider situations she is in, but is not really keen on listening to her own advice, as mentioned at the beginning of the novel. I quote, "She generally gave herself very good advice, though she very seldom followed it. We see this when she goes to drink from the bottle labeled 'Drink Me,' but checks first if it's poison. Once she drinks it, she becomes bigger, unable to fit through the door she wants to go through in order to follow the white rabbit. This happens continuously in the story, the growing and shrinking, and is mentioned by Alice on multiple occasions, making her not know who she is anymore from all the changes she goes through in just one day. Let me think. Was I the same when I got up this morning? I almost think I can remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same, the next question is, who in the world am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle." Upon reaching the caterpillar, we see Alice being confused. The caterpillar repeatedly asks her, "Who are you?" And Alice doesn't know how to answer. And how could she, considering she's in this odd place where nothing makes sense, including her? She's constantly changing sizes, forgetting things she seemingly knew before. But the theme of change is not just present in Alice. Wonderland is a constantly changing place, with disappearing cats, royals with severe mood swings, babies that turn to pigs, and the caterpillar, who will one day become a butterfly. Curiosity is the very first theme we're introduced to in this novel. The whole reason the story happens, and the reason why I'm making this essay in the first place, is because Alice saw a white rabbit in a waistcoat and was like, yep, let me follow that rabbit and see where it goes. Throughout the whole story, she goes around and meets new characters and finds herself in odd situations because she just wants to understand this wonderland she stumbled upon. She constantly interrupts characters to ask questions, opposes the explanations given to her if she does not see the logic behind them, and even tells off characters when she's done with them, and still goes further and further into Wonderland because she's curious. As I mentioned earlier, we stopped putting much emphasis on curiosity. If you ask a question in class, you're not seen as curious, but as someone who doesn't understand what is taught. And, oh no, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to a human being. Sarcasm in case it wasn't obvious. The focus is on already knowing, not learning, and I don't even need to go into how much that can negatively affect us as we go through life. If we mess up, it is no longer called a mistake, but a failure, and this way of thinking spreads in all the aspects of our lives. You finally got yourself to draw, but the end result didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Instead of saying, yeah, I can improve that, at least I worked on something I like, we immediately discourage ourselves from ever picking up a pen again. After all, you can't fail if you never try. The lack of curiosity means a lack of trial and error, and ultimately the rise of perfectionism. We no longer see it necessary to do things we are not sure we can do almost perfectly, even though we know perfection is unattainable. Unnecessary pressure arises, which kills creativity. We might be curious, but at this point, the walls are too high to climb over. Did I bum you down? Nice. Now let's get back to Alice. She's constantly found in strange situations and continues to explore and find even more oddities in Wonderland and the characters she meets. But, yet again, important to notice, Alice is a child. Children are naturally more curious, which is logical considering curiosity arises when we don't understand things and wish to understand. Although we do know more as adults about the world and ourselves than as children, curiosity should not be an artifact of childhood. Once we leave school, people like to tell us how we don't stop learning, as this is something we will do our whole lives. That is essentially life, going through days with nonsensical stuff happening and us trying to make sense of it. And here is the thing. If we put so much emphasis on learning, we should know curiosity is its beginning. We wouldn't know so many things today if someone at some point wasn't thinking, I don't know, I wonder if I can put pineapple or pizza or whatever. We need curiosity to grow. Whether we need to solve some school assignment, an issue at work, curiosity will guide us. How to know what we could do if we are not curious enough to ask ourselves that question and act upon it? So, in a sense, what Alice showed us childlike curiosity can do, we can transfer to our adult lives. And in doing so, we don't need to pressure ourselves to perform outstandingly. That kills the desire to even do it the next time. We just have to try. In this story, Wonderland can represent many things. It represents our childhood, something we left behind but still carry deep in ourselves. It represents our passions, something we would like to be more curious about and explore without the need to do well in it. The same way how this book can be interpreted in many ways, we can be curious simply for enjoyment, or we can be curious to embark on a new journey that will ultimately lead to a deeper understanding of the world. So yes, sometimes we do just have to follow the white rabbit and see what remarkable discoveries we will make in our own Wonderland. Lastly, she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers would, in the aftertime, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep, through all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. Thank you everyone for watching, and until next time, bye bye!